must be LinkedIn Live, Hour of Empower. Today's keyword gifted to us from Leslie is ROI, which in terms is return on investment for those who don't know. And I think that is so appropriate, especially time investment on LinkedIn.
Mm.
What are you doing? What are you getting? What do you think you're going to get in the future? Right? Those are good ways of measuring return on investment, or at
Mm.
least have a metric.
Mhm.
With that said, chat is wide open. We depend and welcome your direction, comments. Uh, if you're having issues with comments, you can always put those comments in my profile, because this show plays at the back of the background of my profile when it's on. So if you can't get through or you got an issue, just message me there and I'll know to help you out. With that said, we got a first comment, which means it's working. Shaboom, great name. Have never seen you, but welcome here. Hope you enjoy it, get a lot of value. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Leslie Flowers. If you don't know her, you should. You know what me and Leslie were talking about before is a lot of people look like a lot of people, but a lot of people aren't like a lot of people, right? Some people got the goods, and some people are hoping in time they'll figure it out with you. But, I would go for solid experience, track record, you know, than anything else. Elizabeth Falloon is here. Thank you. Elizabeth has been a great guest host, co-host. And with that, I'll turn it over to Leslie. She can share a little bit about herself and then a lot about her initial thoughts on ROI. Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Donald. Yes, Elizabeth, we can see you. Um, so, what I thought first about ROI was, what do we consider an investment? So, we could start with, well, what kind of investments do we make for which we're looking for a return?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, obviously, money is one. Time is perhaps as valuable ultimately as money. And Donald and I were talking a little bit about, what is our intent on LinkedIn? We are investing time. What is our return? We're learning, we're connecting, right? So, what other kinds of investment is there? I mean, time and money seem to be the two top ones. Now, for me, speaking of time and money, I've invested a lot of money and a lot of time. And so have you. Now, I will tell you the one thing I've learned, if I've learned nothing else, that my results ultimately and always exceed or match my level of investment. So it doesn't always happen right away, right? Sometimes the return for me takes years. So there's an interesting story, if you'll allow me, about investing time and being persistent about it. And I
Mm-hmm.
and I, I think that this might be interesting for your listeners. I hope so. We have Elizabeth and Shaboom and Donald. So in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, he doesn't talk about women very much. He wrote it 100 years ago, and men were the ones, right? But he did know of a few, and he gave an example of Fannie Hurst, who wrote Imitation of Life. And if you look, yes, we can see you. Yes, Elizabeth, absolutely, we can see you 100%. Oh, okay. You're in. Hi, Ashif. Ashif won a door prize, and so did Elizabeth on Wednesday.
Wow, great for them. See, it pays to hang out with us.
That's right. So anyway, Fannie Hurst was a writer, and just Google her and you'll see, right? That very well known. And 100 years ago, she wanted to do that more than anything else, and so she was willing to invest her time and energy and be persistent about it. Now, what's so interesting, she got 36 rejections from one magazine for 36 different articles. Most people would have given up and, like, look, I'm throwing good money or good time after bad, right? At some point, you got to pull up stakes. However, if you are sure, as she was, that this was her thing, that she lived for this and was in love with this, she stuck with it. Now, it took 4 years of walking the streets of Broadway. And as Napoleon Hill says it, finally Broadway gave up. In other words, she had invested, right? She did not stop. Now, this is an example where her investment, you could say, it exceeded, or her return, her ROI exceeded her investment. If you're looking at the $100,000 advance she received, the largest anyone had ever had, and the work wasn't even published. So can you match time invested with, and say that $100,000 exceeded her level of investment? So I'll turn it back over to you, Donald. That's
okay. I think that was a wonderful story. I hope everybody gained some very valuable nuggets. When I look at my background is business. I spent 37 years building very significant, important businesses that did a lot of good for a lot of people. And when I look at return on investment, it's no different. Let's say if you were to get a CD, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would have the terms there, what the interest rate is, what the term is, and you'd know it and you'd expect it.
Oh, this is not a CD, a musical CD. You kind of caught me off guard. This is a certificate of deposit.
That's right.
Oh, you're throwing those acronyms around.
A financial instrument.
Okay.
So now that we're there, just like a return on your own investment, what time are you giving it? Write it down. What are you investing? Write it down. I mean, right? If you put 10 grand a bank, they give you something saying you got 10 grand a bank.
Yep.
And what is your return going to be? So you know what you started with. You know what your term is. Once you understand what your expectation is, I'm going to double it in 10 years. I'm going to make 10% in 1 year, whatever it is. Now you've got something to track to. And you can find that your return gets better because you're active in the investment. See, that's the difference between putting 10 bucks in a pot and hoping you get something back versus saying, hey, my investment here is going to be my thought and time that's going to be the most expensive because it's continuing. Once you write a check, all your effort's gone. Now you just got to hope for the best. When you decide to engage in an initiative that's long-term and which you put in and get nothing out and don't expect to get anything out, then you have an opportunity. It's the people who get so excited by a dream or a vision and they jump in and they're surprised 2 days later when nothing's changed. And
yeah. That's absolutely right. And here's the thing. Do you really know how much time it's going to take? And how much are you willing to invest in your time? In other words, right? So for me, it's the balance of this intention I have is so good, right? I'm willing to let it go as long as I want. I am that committed to this. But I also don't want to put an exact amount on what I expect because I actually could earn more.
But starting out, you have to have something that says this is worthwhile. I've been doing this show every day for a year and haven't monetized it. Why? Because I need to continue to get better. The show needs to continue to get better. And when you just decide to put a stake in the ground, that's what you're going to be working from. Right?
Yes.
And until you say, hey, it could use a little more of this, a little more time here, do it right. You know, there's a saying, if you don't got time to do it right, you got time to do it over again. You know, and to me, I'd rather put it in, get it right, and then build on it like a foundation. And what you find is things you could have never known or appreciate when you started. That's the missing ingredient. Who am I going to meet along the way? What am I
That's
going to
right.
learn along the way? How am I going to get better along the way? Those things you don't see in a business plan, right?
Correct.
But you do see it in your own plan. And at the end of the day, the return you should expect every day is some level of enjoyment or fun or learning something that made it worthwhile, knowing that you're learning, getting better along the way before you cash out. And sometimes you never cash out because there's nothing to cash out with, right? Sometimes you can't get out of a place because there ain't no door yet, you know? So,
Let's go back to what it takes. So you did this,
yeah,
you were patient. So, but to the people that are disappointed that it takes so long, how would we encourage people to think differently about this, because we are in an automatic society and we do see people, it appears that they're becoming successful overnight, but when you look deeper it wasn't overnight. So what would you advise the person who really wants to do something and yet they're really impatient?
talk to someone who's done it, who's been there, who can share, hey, even Superman can't do it in that kind of time, you know, because people, once they have context, right? I mean, people look at something, even look at a mountain, they don't see how big it is until they start climbing it. And it's the
Yeah.
same thing is, what did you ever get that lasted, that happened overnight? Because if it can happen to you fast and easy, it's going to happen to everybody else fast and easy. And the other element is don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Maintain whatever you're doing while you're exploring something new. And I think that's a key. People have to break down, where am I moving from research and development to action? And in the beginning, you're gathering thoughts, you're meeting people, you're learning people, but the shortcut that's reliable, get with someone who's done it well, has had great results, who's willing to share it with you, and have an hour meeting. You know, I mean, spend a little bit of time, invest a little
Mhm.
money. I was just talking to Leslie earlier. In most cases, I think the reason why people don't do better is they aim low instead of aiming high, you know, and that's where you
Yeah.
get a better
Yes.
return on investment. You have to be with people who care about what you are, what you do, what you could do with them. And most people are convincing people, trying to fix people in order for them to get going with that person. And those people will have their day in the sun when it shows up. In the meantime, look at people you want to emulate and
Mhm.
connect to. Look at people you want to learn from, you know? And I think being a student is essential to then mastering it, becoming a teacher and teaching how to teach. So the word is, nothing good happens that fast. And if you're doing something, do something that's sustainable. And at the end of the day, there's benefit. And I think
Yeah.
that's what return on investment is. Everybody should just take an inventory, right? Where you're putting your time, who you're spending it with, and what are you getting from it? Leslie, take it over.
Well, so you answered the question, which is, what do you do if you're impatient? You pointed specifically, without saying it, to seek specialized knowledge, which is a principle of success. And and that is exactly right. So talk to somebody, right? And that's really where I wanted to go back to what you said, because I found that people, just like you, they think small. Even I think small sometimes. I was having a conversation with someone and we were talking about this one little thing. And all of a sudden, I get this visual image of something huge where this one little thing is just part of all of that. And boy, eyes light up, imagination takes off. anything that's really worth the ROI, you didn't know exactly how to do it because you would have already. So, to your point, Donald, it's so important to be not to be fixed on how you're going to do it because you don't know, you haven't done it before. But to your point, be open to specialized knowledge, to new information. And, it's very much like climbing a mountain. Until your hands and feet are on the mountain, you don't know your next step.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't stand at the bottom and say, okay, God, track out the steps to the top of the mountain. No. When your feet, even just a little bit, are off the ground and your hands, right, you're getting ready to climb, where your hand goes next is the answer you're seeking. And that is your connection to the universe. So you've got to be in action and you cannot know how and be open to expert advice, specialized knowledge, a mastermind, etc. So that answers the question of being impatient. And if you look at Fannie Hurst, it took her 4 years of pounding the pavement. Hey, I've been doing my work for 15, and I have not yet been showered with riches beyond my imagination. It continues to come. And what I read says that once riches come based on your level of effort and your investment, right? They come in a lot, and they come in a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They flow in a lot. Now that has not happened to me
Yeah,
yet.
but Leslie, there's
Yeah.
people who know less, have done
Mhm.
less,
Mhm.
and are doing better
Yes.
financially, right?
Yes.
So a
Yes.
lot of times it's not the person, it's the group that they're involved in. I talked to a gentleman who's working with clientele that pay him £1 million a year. And he's doing it. It's not like he's just promoting it. So what does he do different than anybody who does what he does? The difference is who does he appeal to? Who does
But it also has to do with loving people over money, because those people who make bukus of money are not happy, healthy, and
well,
wealthy.
not
Very
not 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 universally. Some are, right? You
correct.
can you can be good and
Few,
be,
few.
yeah, but I'm saying that would be the goal of an elevated person, is
Yes.
to have the benefit of delivering huge value and in turn receiving huge value. And it's really the result of the value given versus the money trying to be attained, right? So if you say, I'm going to do great things for wonderful people and without concern for the money, but because of the value you create, there comes back to you that value in return, and that's balanced value. And I think when people look at it, the investment really comes down to other people, right? There's not a lot of money involved in LinkedIn. Most people end up blowing all kinds of time, and saving a lot of not going to coaching, not taking workshops, not thinking I can do it on my own. Automatically when I see something that I want to get more involved in, I'm on YouTube within that hour, watching that person, seeing what they've done. In 30 minutes, I get so much information I would have never had. If there's a concept or an application, I spend 30 minutes because I don't want to figure this out. And maybe if I got a little information, it might make it easier. So you've got to continually invest. It's not a one time, go to one class and hope something happens. You got to work it for it to work. And most people don't understand the process and they think it's either easier than it is or it takes less. I know in business, one principle I can almost guarantee: everything takes longer and costs more money than you anticipate going into it. And if you factor that in, you're going to need more money, more time, more patience. And when it happens, you say, I understood it was going to happen. It's not a big surprise. It doesn't knock you off your horse. With that said, we got a great group of comments I got to go to. Dennis, who was here last week, great guy. I'm glad to have all these people on. I'm here to hear and learn how to earn respect from sharing and caring for sure. And that's the key is, get what you need here. Don't be shy. Ashif said, don't work for money, make it for you. Absolutely. Money is money. And, let's not make a big deal about it. It's like, ice cream's ice cream. How much do you got to talk about it? It's the key is what are you doing? You know, you're young and happy investors compared to me. I've been invested 48 years in my business about savingheat.com.
That's a plug.
Oh, for sure. Leslie, send them an invoice for $50.
I will. I will.
Good morning. Kelly's here. Great to see you, Kelly. Kelly is really, really, I always give her a lot of credit for the value this show has been able to achieve. And I always plug the Awesome Journey on Tuesdays with Christy Howard, 1:11 p.m. Don't want to forget Leslie, Mind Over Matter on Mondays. Fridays is Think and Grow Rich. And Leslie is very generous. She shares everybody else's podcast and LinkedIn lives, for other people. And that's what you got to get around. People are givers, Once they're given to others.
Let me tell you why I do that every week.
Please.
It started because I couldn't keep up with everybody. Right? There were so many good things. The other thing is that speaking of time and investment and ROI, when I was on Facebook for 10 years and I got bumped off, don't ask why.
No.
I didn't really do anything. It doesn't matter. But when I realized there's such a difference in the platforms, while I had a monetized group there, I spent all my time there every day. And so when I got bumped off and I came over to LinkedIn, I got all my time back. Now I forgot where I was going.
You'll find yourself. In the meantime, I'll take over.
Yes, please.
So anyways, Sheaf says, in investing, what is comfortable is rarely profitable. Agree, do it right. Try to put a learning stake in the ground, not just a mistake. I can't ever beat Dennis. Kelly says, right, the seemingly overnight success was generally preceded by a lot of sweat equity, great points. And the ones who were overnight successes usually don't stick because they didn't have, the grind that some people had to go through, the perseverance of getting rejected and having to deal with less and not knowing where the next meal's coming from. It really makes you think a lot harder, appreciate a lot more when you get there, knowing what it takes. I'll give you an example. When my kids graduated school, they all wanted to get into the business with me because they grew up, around the business. And I said to them, do something for somebody for a year and then come see me. And if you're not good enough for anybody, what do I want you here for? And until you work for somebody, do you know what it is to work? And you know what it is for someone to work for you. And, they did that, came back. Both of them worked 8 years together with me and then went on to unbelievable careers now. In action for reaction. Kelly comes back with loving people over money. Love that, Leslie. So true. Dennis comes back with, if you take longer, you will get stronger. And thanks for not unplugging my plug. I'm getting stronger and less longer. Okay.
And I just turned on my heater for the first time this fall. As soon as you put up there somethingsaveheatbetter.com, I turned on my heater. That's what I was doing. Getting back to loving people over money. My goal for myself, I'm not looking for tons of money. What I'm saying for me is that I want a mindset every day of wealth, health, and happiness. So that means that as you earn, you learn, and then you learn how to deal with that money, and then you earn some more, right? And you're learning some more. So you're matched to the levels as you move up in your business. Now, the antithesis of that is winning the lottery. So you've heard that the people who win the lottery, and they do have an overnight windfall, right? So what happens is that they've never done the work to learn how to manage $1 million, $2 million. They're still down here in level of awareness. And what happens to them, They're in confusion. They're in overwhelm. People are coming out of the woodwork. They get rid of all their money. Some of them kill themselves. They end up in worse condition. So, to the point of continuing to invest time and revenue in your growth, it allows you, as your company grows, you learn so that you can be wealthy, happy, and healthy every day. That is not a goal to be wealthy, happy, and healthy, but to feel wealthy, happy, and healthy. So if you continue learning along with growing your business, you're a vibrational match for that. And you actually get to enjoy growing your business and making money and not have as much stress. So that's the reason very often that people who win the lottery and get that overnight success end up in worse condition because there's no fun in it for them. They don't know what to do. It's terrible for them to the point where they're just more miserable. So to the point of continuing to learn and invest, and then at some point, everybody will get it on LinkedIn as they do on Facebook, but faster on LinkedIn, right? You have to invest financially. If you, let's just say you're a coach, okay? I mean, because I faced this myself when I was learning coaching. So let's say you're a coach. Most coaches don't make more than $50,000 a year, right? That's a second job for them in reality. So let's say that you're a coach, right? And what you want to do is to generate a lot of income and have a lot of clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's what your goal is. And yet you won't invest in yourself. Oh, I can't afford that. I can learn it myself. Let me tell you something. Or you do invest and you don't pay. You are going to attract the same client that you are. So if you're in a place of learning and not investing financially in yourself at all, don't expect your clients to invest in you, right? Because you're going to attract the same kind of person with the same value, standards, and ideals, right? You'll resonate with them. So consider when you say, no, I'm not going to invest in it for whatever reason, do not expect your clients to invest in you. Don't expect that because they're going to be who you attract is you.
Yeah,
So
I
if
think that's
anything,
perfect.
invest money in yourself, but make sure it's a person like Donald or myself who have the track record.
Absolutely.
Right?
Thank you, Leslie, for that.
You're
And
welcome.
to add to that,
Please.
you have to be with people who can afford you if you are what you need them to be. Because if you have value and no one can afford to access it, even if it's a dollar, and the dollar is in one person's mind, right, where they have a limited belief that they can patch together free samples and somehow
Right.
get to their direction, and eat for a meal or a day versus build something for the future. I think that's who you need to surround yourself with, because you're right.
But consider, Donald, consider people have money for what they want. When I was faced, it depends on what you want and how badly you want it. So in 2007, right, I had been running a meetup group called the Secret Society. I was a secretary, made $2,500 a month. And on the weekends, I did this meetup group where we talked about the secret. And I loved it.
Mhm.
And after 6 months of that, I was guided. I won't go into the details, but I had been asking myself, boy, this would be really cool to be able to do this full time, to talk about the law of attraction and the secret and all that, because everybody just loved it, right? And I ended up on Bob Proctor's site. Now, I didn't know who he was at all. This is now 2007. I'm making $2,500 a month. And I've spent 6 months to a year really immersing myself in the law of attraction and that meetup. I had $500 in an Edward Jones account. And of that 2,500, I didn't always see. That was gross. But there was something that guided me there. And I had been asking, how can I do this? How can I do this? So I follow the path and I end up on Bob Proctor's site. And they start talking about Mastermind and Think and Grow Rich. And I'm going, what the hell are those things? Never heard of Think and Grow Rich, never heard of Mastermind. And they went in and explained, here's what you'll do. You're going to come down here in the spring to West Palm Beach. You're going to be with all these people from around the world, and you're going to study with Bob. You're going to become a consultant. But the first thing you're going to do is, before you get here, is you're going to hold a mastermind. We'll send you the information. Great. So then I asked the question, what's the investment? Now, this was November of 2007, and this person said $16,000. It didn't matter what she said, I was going. And so, to the point that there are as many people that have money as don't. Who are you looking for? If they want what you have, if I wanted this so bad, I didn't care what it cost. I was going. Period. The end. And about 4 months later, there was a windfall. This is how the universe works. So you surround yourself with people who you are. You attract people who you are. Donald, have you been investing in yourself lately? Do you have a coach? So here's the thing. You attract who you are. I think it may be time for you to take out a $10,000 or $20,000 check and get some good coaching from someone. That way, the people that have money to do that are going to be attracted to you. All kidding aside, if you really, really, really want something, and if you think back and you didn't have the money, but you were persistent and you were in love with the idea and you were not taking it, and that was me because I had $500. She could have said it was $100,000. Didn't matter. I never looked at the money again. I just knew that's what I wanted. So people have money for things they want. They'll find the money, but they have to want it, not need it.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't need it.
And they have to be aware of it in order to want it. And I think part of your story, which is a big factor, is the desire and the passion in order to want to do something that you've experienced. And that way, the bridge you pay to cross to get there, whether it's 16,000, isn't the issue to bridge. It's getting to the other side and now bringing that into your life. And everything is relative and conditional to something else. So what's 16,000? If you plan on the next year to increase your income by 100,000 a year, right? You're going to get 7 times your money back the first year.
The first year, I did all my masterminds for free for the first year and a half.
You see, that's another part of the investment, right? So when you look at investment, you say, okay, money, that's easy because when you write the check, you know the number. Then you say time, right? And it's like any other thing, like your dream board or writing your goals down, put them in a drawer for a year, coming back to them. You say, okay, I'm willing to spend 1,000 a month. I'm willing to spend 6 hours a month time, and here's what the expectation is. But at least going in and you sign it or agree to it, put it on the wall. So when you question yourself, you look at that and you say, you knew this going in, you agreed to it. And if not this, then what takes its place tomorrow? If not now, when do you find something? And I'm always ride the horse you're on while you're planning on the next horse you might be moving on to. And here's the other thing that I think is important. If you need something else to make you happy, that's not the answer. So in other words, if you go into something a winner already, then the results are not earth-shattering. They're not like I put everything I have into it, all my time, all my thought, all my people, and I got nothing. Well, what kind of investment is that? I see people on these game shows, and all of a sudden they came there with nothing. They got $200,000 on the board, and they could either take it home or double it. And they go for it. And I'm thinking if they would have 200 grand, put it in the bank for 2 weeks and then someone came to him and says, you want to put it all up on a wheel of fortune or something, they never do it, right? So the question is, are you thinking emotionally, or are you thinking rationally, realistically, pragmatically? And here's the other thing is, there's an initial investment, there's an ongoing investment. It's up to you to get your money back. I know if I paid 16 grand, I'm going to be reading every page. I'm going to be asking I'm not going to rely on anybody to make it happen. If it happens, I'm going to make it happen with them making it happen. Because, if I'm that passionate about something, I'm willing to invest everything I got into it, right? I owe it to myself to maintain that investment, right? If you bought a property, it's up to you to make sure everything is up to date and maintained. And I think that's the practice you get into, is if it's not there, what could I do to do more to get it there? You don't be a passive investor. You're an active investor. If you got a big share in something, you want to be at the meetings. You want to see what's going on, get the numbers. Before we get back, we need to go back. That's almost stealing from Dennis now. Okay, so investing what is comfortable is rarely profitable. Money's so hard because it carries so many things with it. If we're talking about a gallon of milk, it'd be a short conversation. Agree, do it right. Try to put a learning stake in the ground, not just a mistake. Kelly comes back with right. The seemingly overnight was generally perceived by a lot of sweat equity. Great. Inaction for reaction. And one concept or three letters I'll give you that you should consider right now is COI. And what COI means, cost of inaction. Okay, is what happens when you don't do it, right? Someone gave you an opportunity and you decide no. Well, there's a cost of inaction there. That's right. So there's not just you do something and ask a return. You don't do something and you don't get any opportunity.
And that's the cost of time.
Exactly.
Right. Not money necessarily, but more time.
Well,
and
or
time
even
is
inaction could be just, I should have done it yesterday. I waited 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Or I should do it now. I'll get to it later. And later means everything gets pushed back. Because if you would have done the thing now, you would have been able to do something else when you do the thing. So how do you compress activity to move through things, to not have a pile on your desk that only gets bigger? Dennis comes back. Well, no, Kelly comes back with loving people or money. Loved that, Leslie. So true. Take longer. Okay, I think we covered some of these. Here we go with it worked. It was a secret. Tell now. I like to look for people that are funny. I don't hear or laugh at money. Yeah, money is whatever money is. I mean, I'm not knocking it, but people make a bigger deal about it, and the rest of their life is way out of balance. And
it is one of the 6 basic fears is the fear of poverty. There's not enough for me. I'm gonna run out. And you can't go forward toward an intention or a goal if you're worried and have the desire for it and be afraid at the same time. You have to choose, right? And that's really what happened with me. The desire was so great that it overshadowed any significance of the money. I just knew that I was going to do this, and I didn't even think about how I was looking to do those things, and that's where I was focused. And I tell you, I did it again a couple of years ago with the same $16,000. I wanted to take all my kids and grandkids, or my kids and grandkids, on a cruise, a Disney cruise, and it was right when COVID lifted enough briefly to cruise. And I started a year and a half before. I decided, I've been thinking about this for years, but I put a line in as Dennis says, I put a stake in the ground and I said, okay. And by the way, I'm not going to be in those little rabbit holes at the bottom. We're going to be on the concierge level. And that was my intention. And everything I did right? I was focused on getting that secured. And 18 months later, and by the way, the cost for two concierge level suites, one larger than the other, there were 9 of us, was $16,000. Oh, we could have been in the little holes in the ground for 8, but that's where you trip over, trying to get out onto this tiny little, and I wanted to hold court. I wanted to go to be to hold court, have my family come out, get sodas, just really enjoy and relax. So I didn't have to go for 16,000, but I wanted to go top class. And I've been thinking about it for so long. I finally said, okay, enough thinking about it. Let's do it. And of
Mhm.
course, along came COVID, but we still were able to go the week before Thanksgiving. So the amount of money did not matter. It was the desire. And how do you do that? And how do you stay with it? You have to have a very specific thing you want to do. You are deeply in love with it. You are people first, money second. You can't be both. You have a big why. It will make a big difference in the world. This is your all in. I'm going on this cruise, and damned if I didn't generate that extra
Yeah,
6.
well, and that's I think a inspiring story for people who know what they want to do, who know what is they're capable of doing, but it's taking that first step towards it, right? Is getting online and getting some initial information on cruise ships and costs. And that's where the research and development starts to come into play. Is let's gather some information. I mean, too many people do the opposite, which is just as wrong. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it. Right? I'm going to.
No, well, okay. Listen, I opened a
Well,
chocolate.
yeah, well, should have brought up something else. So anyway, switching that to a new direction. Uh, what I find is everything again is relative and conditional. When people have a lot of money, they spend a lot of money. When they have little money, they spend little money. The difference is, there was a person who said, I've been broke, but I've never been broken.
I
And,
love that.
and it actually was Michael Todd who married Elizabeth Taylor,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. The director.
who did Around the World in 80 Days, and he died in a
Mhm,
plane crash.
mhm.
Uh, there's so many people who have made a lot, gone broke, made a lot, gone broke. It never stopped them. It just taught them. And most people, because they went over the edge, it's because they challenged themselves to go where other people weren't. That they weren't satisfied and they thought they could do more and they slipped and they fell, but they got back up and they got even bigger the next time around. Walt Disney went bankrupt twice before he got to where he was. And back then in the 30s and 40s, going bankrupt was a serious social issue. You
But
know,
since they took that risk the first time, these people that are wildly successful lose it all and become wildly successful again, that first success was built on this seed of clarity and desire, if you will. And they did not know how they were going to be successful. They didn't know they had an intention, they had an expectation, but they didn't really know how they were going to do it. That's the key. And there should be some fear because if you've never done it before, well, why wouldn't you be a little fearful? But you can't be in faith and fear, faith toward the thing and fear at the same time. So what you do is when that fear comes up, the fear of poverty, because it will, that's when you say, "Oh, there's my green light that this is a really good goal." Right? And then go back to why you wanted it. Now for me, I didn't care about the money. In around 2000 I decided I got a wild hair. A friend of mine said, "I met a chocolatier in the mountains of North Carolina." And I said, "I'm going to open a chocolate company." I don't know a thing about it, but I got this vision of a handmade truffle company in a little chalet on a mountain near Asheville, North Carolina. And I absolutely lived right into it. Now, at the end of a year, I will tell you, I ran out of money. I had had ads in the New Yorker. I didn't know what I was doing. And so the return on investment, right, for it was my $75,000 MBA. That's what I say it is, because learning about running a business, right, it was that was my MBA, right? And I simply ran out of money and closed it down. But I couldn't walk away in defeat. So that's when I turned it into, well, what did I learn? Holy mackerel. During that time, my ninth book, which will come out first quarter, my first fiction, the outline was done then about this chocolate company, and it's now written. It's been published in one place. So you could say that my ROI took 20 years in this instance, and it will, my intention for the book, which is fiction, is for it to be with a streaming service. There are 12 episodes, right? So it's still to be revealed what that $75,000 did 25 years ago. And that experience of opening this chocolate, and oh my God, I put on so much weight. These were the best chocolates ever. Right, here comes the chocolate lady. Here comes that. I always went everywhere with a basket full of truffles. So I love living wealthy, happy, and healthy every day. I wake up happy every day. I help someone every day, right? And I am not a good coach to myself. I do not rely on myself in difficult times. I rely on a mastermind partner, a friend like Donald, who knows so much more than me,
Well,
right?
you give me too much credit, but with that, Leslie, it's a great story. Here's what I took away from it
Thank you.
is that your investment in something is your investment in everything also. So in other words, someone says, I put 10 grand in this. Well, that lesson allowed you to continue from there with a different mindset. So you paid for that mindset, whatever it was. Maybe it's like, I'm going to get my money back on my next deal. And that motivates you even harder. Or, I learned enough that if I would have had more time, more money, it might have worked, but I didn't plan properly or whatever it was. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
One thing I know about winning, it speaks for itself, and no one cares how you lost,
That's
right?
right.
Coming in second is coming in second, and no one really cares. And if you won, you don't have to talk about it. So the
Yeah.
key is all you got to do is act on your last win, your last investment that paid off. Going on a blind date almost 52 years ago, I met my wife, right? What kind of an investment was the drive to meet her? What was the hamburger and the French fries and the Coke we bought at the Burger King, right? I mean, we're kind of
Thought
teenagers.
you were going to talk about the kettle right outside the druggist 100 years ago in
No,
Virginia.
no. The point is little things you do can pay high returns,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Honestly, there was a bookstore in town that was like the bookstore before anything else, right? And everybody would go there at seating areas, coffee places. It was like whatever you wanted. And I learned that if you want to learn something, just find somebody who's written a book about it before YouTube and Google.
Mhm.
And I was just checking out and I saw this little cassette tape. And it was no big deal, but the words were Think and Grow Rich. And I just thought because of the title, how audacious in a way that someone could come up with that few words and say think and grow rich. And what it really says is anybody can think and grow rich. If someone says invest 10 grand and go and be rich, you would say, yeah, that's typically how that works. What I realized, and I took the thing and it was instrumental in getting me balanced through things, right? Because I would take him every day, throw it against where I was at, and he'd either elevate my thinking or eliminate those fears and thoughts and everything else. So I think the key is what something helps you become that you couldn't have become without it. And that's where a good coach or trainer comes in. And, would you rather have half the time with twice the help or double the time on your own? And money and time, there is a relationship. If you don't have enough of either one of them, you're going to probably be under a tremendous amount of stress, and that'll probably tip you over because the game is in your head. The game is between you and yourself. I've seen people survive things in business were unbelievable, but they took it one step at a time, one person at a time. And you do what you have to do when you have to do it. When people say, I don't have any money, well, if you ask everybody you know if they can help you, no, I don't want to bother people.
Then you don't want it enough.
Well, that's my point. Is
Yes.
if someone's sitting there in a terrible situation, you're going to not even think and do. So I think the thing out of return on investment
Mm.
is really first of all figuring where are you invested right now, right? If you went to a financial advisor, say, well, share me, throw what's out there. How much you got in the bank? What do you got in stocks? Where are you invested? Where are you in life? What's your plan? You're aggressive, you're conservative. And the same thing is, well, I put 7 hours a week in with that person. That's really your coach that you're not paying. That's how, everybody's got a coach. Is it the bus driver who knows nothing about what you're talking about, but they're sitting there keeping you company? So it's redirection. Where am I getting my advice from? What is that advice doing for me? Is it really serving me? And how much time do I got in life? Right? Because while you're waiting to start the game's playing with or without you. Tomorrow's coming whether you're ready or not. And if you have sound investments in people, that's where you're going to get the benefit, right? Money without, what Shakespeare says, a fool and her money is easily parted. The protection is knowledge. The protection is network. So with that said, Dennis says, agree, ride the horse to learn, but not just to horse around. Dennis, you're too much on a Saturday morning sometimes. Elizabeth says hello to Chief. COA done untapped revenue for sure. Dennis comes back with agree, be big and whole, not stuck in a little hole. You're only going to get as far as you aim, and I rather aim twice as high and get a little bit more than halfway than aim halfway and never go any further. Agree, have a honey and money. They're both sweet to be with. Well, I think if you got a great family life, if you got a great partner who's always supporting you, that gives you a tailwind. If you got somebody says, well, how much did you make today? What are you wasting your time there? Just having to answer it takes you away from what you're doing. And eventually, when the saying, when the pain of holding on is greater than the fear of letting go, you let go, right? And it's easier not to deal with it then, and that's what they call dream stealers. Instead of people say, you can do it. I know you, I got faith in you, versus why are you trying that? It never works out for you. We only die once. We live every day for sure.
Oh, that reminds me of something really quick. Don't take this down.
No,
Are we going to live?
I'll finish all these. Thanks for sharing your mistakes. You learn from. We all need to learn from our mistakes, but we won't live long enough to make them all by ourselves. A mistake is just a learning experience. Give yourself a break. Take yourself out of jail. Grant yourself a pardon. Thinking is a grand investment. Dennis says, we do all need to learn to relate to our relationships. Thanks for reminding us. Petra's here. Great to agree with. And then Ashif comes back. The more you learn, the more you see. Leslie, let's get back to the point you were so excited by. Which one do we want to cover?
Well, it's okay. It was the one our chief said. Really, it made me think of something.
We only die once.
No, yeah. Well, what I was thinking is we can live 90 years and repeat the 90 years, or we can live, how does that go? 1 year at a time. In other words, for me, every year is different, right? So I butchered that, but it's about, am I going to live the same year over and over again 90 times, right? Or am I going to live each year as though it's brand new? And that's what that reminded me of.
Well, and I think it's again how you
That's right.
look at your investments in the past, because here's one thing I know for sure. Everything and everybody that got you here allowed you to be who you are today, right? You can't pick out the good from the bad, and because that's like it never happens anywhere else in life, right? But the bad makes you smarter. And I always tell people I learn more on the way down than the way up, because you get humbled. You learn humility. When everything is up, you take it for granted. You think it's only going to get better. It'll always be there forever. And pretty soon you start falling asleep, and you become like Yertle the turtle in that old Dr. Seuss book, where you are because of taking advantage of everybody else instead of creating value for everybody else. And you can't take it with you. They say you come in a world with nothing, the worst you can do is break even at the end. So everything in between is a gift and is gravy. And if you're not getting what you want, where are you shopping? Don't always blame it. You've got something to say and do about everything you say and do. And even LinkedIn, they give you same day results. It's like the Polaroid camera, right? All you got to do is look at them and say, do I want these results tomorrow? Well, then keep doing what you're doing. And one of my secrets is repurposing. I'm not going to pull the rug on an audience if they're not done looking at it or watching it. Doing a post 3 days in a row, the same post doesn't hurt. It reinforces it.
Well, repetition is how we learn. So we've already figured out at one time it was 6. You had to see it 6 times. Now people say it's 9 times. And we're so inundated with a sensory overload of opportunities, which are wonderful. It's really hard to keep track, for me anyway, to keep track of getting back to why I do this every Monday. So it did come back to me. So first it was because I wanted to keep up. The other thing was that I wanted to keep people on this platform to save time. So that's why it's only audio and live streams right now. At least that was the intention initially, for you to save time, because these are such rich conversations. And it reminded me of how much time I piddled away on Facebook. Yes, I monetized, but I found that the time that I got back that was more focused, learning here on this platform, it would have been different if there wasn't learning here, right? So it was worth more than the money that I was trading all my time for. It wasn't that significant, right? So in that instance, my time as I got older seems to be more precious than money. I mean, both are important, right? So that's why every Monday, and I'm changing the format, I've got too many. There are too many people, and I'll put it out there. There are audio and video live streams, people teaching, having deep conversations. I'll tell you that the audio appears to be, as an overview, I have 2 audios and 1 live stream, and I've done a ton of live streams. So the distinction in the 2 I have found, the audio is not recorded. It's a safe, quiet space of belonging where people can really, if they want to, safely talk about the things that they love and the things that concern them, right? In a very special way. Live stream is different, right? You've got comments and, right? So both of them are powerful values for you without leaving the platform. So every Monday I shoot that out. I'm adding people all the time. And by the way, if you want to start an audio or a video room, the day that's the most empty is Thursday. Tuesday, it's like this. Everybody has picked Tuesday. Oh my God, I've never seen anything like it. And then a couple on Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, and Friday too. But Thursday, if you want to do it, I'm telling you that is the least populated for audio or videos. And that's why I do it. I do it because you can stay here. It's right here. And then it's also in support of these wonderful people who show up every week. This is weekly. So they are committed like you, Donald. Every week, I can count on them to be there. And then
No, and I think that's the key in what I'm looking to do.
Mhm.
And the reason I like video so much
Mhm.
is I like to be with the person or relate to the person on the screen in front of the audience, at the same time introducing the audience at times for the people on the screen. So, with 37,000 connections, the only connections that matter are scheduled people on the show, right? If I can get to 6 or 7 people, and even that's a lot,
Mhm.
where we find ways to collaborate, to monetize, to support each other, then that makes it all worthwhile. I'd rather do more with less people than less with more people. I reach
Mhm.
out to a lot of people, but the people who come into the show are people I can benefit from, I can learn from. To kind of wrap it up with ROI, again, you can calculate what your time investment, what your money investment, what your expectation, but that's the long-term goal. I'll put it in the bank for a year and here's what we'll get a year from now. The short-term benefit is, hey, I just learned something from Leslie. I just laughed with Leslie. All of a sudden, hey, I got a great return on my hour. It's already paid for, right? If anything
Yes.
from the seed blossoms, that's gravy. And if you do it consistently, I'm doing this every day, there's a lot of seeds that have been planted. There's a lot of people that have been impacted. And hopefully people get good enough and
Mhm.
smart enough here where now they have the confidence to get some coaching or take the initiative. Because as the group gets better, because everybody's a little smarter every day. Everybody's a little bit more cooperative every day.
And you've got this positive, let's not forget about the value of feeling good. The conversations here are not about judging and I'm right, you're wrong, and I disagree with what you're saying. It's an open venue, and you've actually created this, Donald, right? Not all are like this, right? But the thing is this is also a safe space. And you actually take people's questions and comments, and that is a big part of this show. This is a safe space. I don't think I've ever had anybody get nasty or judgy on this that I can remember ever. And like, we're giving it, like, take what you like, choose the things you like, but really just pick one thing, right? Don't inundate yourself, would be my suggestion. If you hear something that resonates with you, like Donald said, do a little research on it, right? Maybe you've never heard of COI. So if that's really right, when we learn new concepts, we're confused initially in most cases. If we're really curious about it and we're really intrigued, we'll sit with it and then we will get clear. In other words, out of confusion comes order if you choose to stay with it. But you can also choose to not look at it right now. It's not interesting enough to you right now to focus on. That's okay too. Wherever you are in your journey is where you are. And I can't tell you what you should do, and neither can anybody else. You can ask for guidance, but the way you're doing it is absolutely perfect for you. You do not need a coach. You do not need to invest any money. You have to see why you would and want to. There's a huge distinction between want and need. Want has a wonderful high vibration, it's objective and responsive. Need, not so much. Right?
Well, and I think that's the key, is the half full, half empty mentality, and getting around people who lift you up instead of bring you down.
That's right.
And you should have a meter to say, I was in good mood before I ran into that person or took that Zoom call. But once you identify it,
That's right.
right? It's like having a bee around you. You don't just say, I'll wait for the next bee. You try to get rid of that bee somehow because your mind's always going to be hearing the buzzing and worrying about the sting and everything else. So you have a neutral gear, you have a reverse gear,
Yes.
right? Sometimes you just got to put a neutral and say, I got to figure out where I'm at. And sometimes I got to back out of where I, in out of this place that I ended up in.
Let
And
me let me share with you what Napoleon Hill does when he gets around negative people. Did he doesn't still do it, but I thought it was really interesting, and I've used the same visualization myself. He said if he gets the way he described it, it may not even have been in Think and Grow Rich. It may have been in one of his other books. But when he gets in a group of people that are negative, like in the South, you're driving along and there's a little country store and there's a whole bunch of old men sitting out front talking about their illnesses and everything negative. So what he does, he said he visualizes, he didn't say visualize. He pictures Venetian blinds. Now those are plantation blinds, okay? In his conscious mind, and he lowers them. So the lowering of the blinds rejects or deflects any of the negative words that are swirling around. Okay. So it sounds kind of kooky, really, but visualization is extremely powerful. And I actually had this happen once when I was invited to a luncheon and a going away party. But what I didn't know, with a whole bunch of friends, what I didn't know is someone there was going to start selling a particular health product. And when they were all at different tables, right? And when they began to talk about this health product, they went into their illness of heart disease
Mhm.
and they began to extrapolate on the trials and tribulations and how awful it was. And I sat there at a table in the back like this because I didn't know about the Venetian blind, but I knew that if I stuck my fingers in my ears, I could not hear that. You see, we get a lot of information through our conscious mind and our five senses by default. And that was very negative. And I didn't want to really get into and I would immediately we visualize all the time. So when someone's telling a story, the cool part is to imagine it happening. Well, I didn't want that and I didn't know what to do. And the people at the table with me, they kind of looked at me oddly. But there's something to be said about stepping away, as you point out, Donald. Stepping away, get into neutral, back out of that when you recognize it. And that's a huge sign that you're growing in awareness.
Well, and I think that's a key because knowing when to come, knowing when to go.
It
Usually, in
is.
a situation like that, I just leave. I'd leave as quietly as
Yeah.
without anything else. But if I know I'm just here for appearances, or I'm here because I'd be embarrassed to leave, so I'll endure it. Anytime you marginalize yourself
Mm.
by saying, if there was a saying when I was doing restructurings, if you wouldn't buy it, you need to sell it, right? If you
Yeah.
wouldn't hire it, you need to move that person forward. If
You
knowing what,
see, your point though is that you have to be aware that you recognized it. How many times have you been in a group, you walk into a group, a networking event, or something negative is going on, and you walk in fine and then you leave and you feel like crap, right? That is the recognition, right? That the power of vibration actually affects you. If you've got a whole room of people being negative, it's going to affect you.
yeah, and it's no different. If you have an apple in your refrigerator, right? And you look and it has a blemish on it or something. All of a sudden, you're starting to think differently about it. Depending on how the blemish is. Should I cut it off? Should I just give it up?
Is there a
Right?
worm?
Yeah. And that's just an apple. You
Yeah.
get around a table of five awful, miserable people, and somehow you expose yourself to the toxicity for 40 minutes, an hour. And I just take responsibility at that point. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. I thought it was something else. My mistake. Have a great meeting.
Mhm.
I'm not
Mhm.
here to fix anything or change
You're
anybody.
being diplomatic,
Yeah, and it's
and
like
you're choosing to step the hell away from that.
taking the responsibility and the accountability. Because I could say, hey, you guys, what are you doing here? You're making this crazy stuff and and it's like, where am I? My goal is be in alignment with where I'm at, who I'm with, and what I'm dealing with. And a lot of times the people who fail embrace, like you say, everybody. They win 20 million bucks and the nephew just got $1 million for a car and somebody else got $1 million. And they don't understand they're never going to get any more money than this. This is not like a movie star that gets 20 million a movie and you can blow it and know you're going to get another 20. This is like all you're ever going to have. So I think, again, having the priorities, knowing what's most important. I always put family first. It was always whatever. If someone had a baseball game, I'm there. Someone had a recital, I'm there. Because then everything else I did allowed me to be there. It wasn't the money, it was the freedom. It was like, hey, no one has to, I don't need permission. I don't need a pass. Because I'm paying for it. When you own your own business, you pay for your mistakes and you benefit from your benefits. And what you're looking to do is maintain that. I was fortunate, same business, 37 years. That's a long run starting with a Buick. And, I'm talking big business, major stuff.
And we appreciate, I have to tell you, Donald, I know I speak for everybody. Really,
At this time of the program, we're probably the only one.
we're the only ones left. No, that's not true. We still have people, but I just want to say this to you, that what you've given all of us this last year is priceless. And, I just want to acknowledge you
Well,
for that and thank you for doing this. I've had more fun.
Well, me too. And you're so sweet and generous with your sharing of that. And I've also been able to be much different and better than I was a year ago for it. Right? And it's the little things done right that compound that become the bigger things. It's not something shows up big. It was small at one time, and then you nurtured it, you cultivated it, and you got behind it. My first business, I made $50 a week for the first year I graduated college, and that was in the early 70s. And my family was like, what did you go to school for? You're making nothing. You're working, people are doing the stuff you're doing who didn't go to school. And I'm living in Detroit because that means you go to GM, Chrysler, or Ford. They're waiting for you for a decent job if you want that kind of job. But a year later, I owned the building. The restaurant next door had a high-rise apartment, had a brand new car, money in the bank, but a year it took to let the business get strong enough to take care of me. And that way it could take care of me. But if people plant a seed and they want their fruit the next minute, and then it's not showing up, so I plant another seed expecting that to change something. And money's is a return on the value you put out there, and need less and it'll be less. Ask yourself, what are you using this money for that you could have kept inside the business? I mean, me and Ann had cars that were 12 years old before we traded them in because they weren't important. I wouldn't take a dime out of the business that could make money with it to put something on the road I'm never going to drive anyways. But anyways, we're already over time, but it's Saturday. I want to thank everybody. Dennis has a lot of great comments. Well, let me share them. It's only
Dennis needs to do one of those books that's in the front of Barnes and Nobles, one of those small books, and have every one of these absolutely hilarious plays on word in that book.
Dennis, you heard it from Leslie. Thanks for sharing your mistakes you learned from. We all need to learn from our mistakes. We won't live long enough to make them by ourselves. Thinking is a grand investment. So true. We do all need to learn to relate to our relationships. Thanks for reminding us. Petra comes back with agreed. A sheaf is the more you learn, the more you see. So true. Petra, by upbringing, always taught me to never go around begging for help or money. And no one loves begging or beggars, but people do appreciate respectful people who are doing good and need a little helping hand. And when you're presented that way, you'll be surprised and you're doing them a favor. A bus driver is driving a couch. So meet the other passengers. Don't let the opposite
Coach. I think he means
coach.
coach.
Yeah, for sure. Got to fix that before you do your book, Dennis.
That's
90 years of growth of self-sustainability. Dennis comes back with agree, keep tracking, will learn and will be more attractive. So true. Petra, live streams most definitely allow you to deliver your true message, purpose without miscommunication. You know, I love people's expressions. You know, I love people's reactions. And everybody in the audience is waiting for what are they going to do? What are they going to say? What are they going to feel? Thursdays are golden days. Okay, agree. A sheep don't live the same 75 times and call it a life. Okay, this is a good connection we have. I'm trying to get a sheep on the show anytime you're ready. Too many people in your four mate is not more than four. The more is still the merrier. Okay. Uh, a sheep, absolutely right. Live and learn every day and not just someday. You know, I love that a sheep. Elizabeth, great that everybody's staying longer. Yes, Donald is wonderful. Let you express yourself. You know, it's about community. You know, no one can ride if not everybody's together, you know, and why not be together? That's the whole purpose of coming together. Not looking at it isn't taking care of an issue. For
right.
sure, inaction is an action.
Absolutely no decision is a decision. Well, I don't know if
Right.
I'm going to be there. Well, that's your decision. I can't count on you.
Well, that's
So
the COI part of
uh,
it. What did you refuse to invest in? But what action could it, you know, and that's the thing is review your investment strategy. What is it doing it? And if you go back to my time frame, my investment of time, well, how did that work out? Because the next plan could be a modification of the one that didn't work, right? It took me 5 bank
absolutely.
loans to get my first bank loan, and the first four told me how to put a bank loan together.
Well, and
Because
that's the magic of synthetic imagination
well, and
and
that's the
reason,
benefit of saying, what's wrong with this? I know
right?
you didn't give me the money. Where was I off? They would tell me, well, the next one had something relating to that. And eventually I figured out how to do it right. Focus and research, and we can be in order, not disorder, move and improve. Thanks for reminding us. Petra, perfectly said. Dennis, wow, time flies when we listen to what we love. So true. And that's why some things are a labor of love. Sometimes you have to invest in order to enjoy at that level, right?
Absolutely.
Because the good thing about training or coaching is it's personalized in most cases, and you can't get
Absolutely.
personalized even in this setting. You're going to get a question, an answer, maybe learn from others, but you're going to have that anyways. It's not an either or, it's an either and game these days. You know, take what you're doing and complement it. That happens to me also. By the time I realized I was on my way out, sit back, see a lot. Negativity is worse than World War II. Well, I guess. Profound analogy, Don. Great. I don't know what it was, but I'll take it. Us liberal folks are left and still having fun learning from you too. Sheaf comes up with an emoji, double hearts. Petra, I was invited to a podcast because he was trying to help me get my own podcast, but was dealing with imposter syndrome. I was like upset. I'm scratching my head and what just happened. You know, and that's the fun of having a sense of humor. Whatever it is, if you can take a moment to laugh at yourself, laugh at it, even how could this ever happen? It's 1,000,000 to 1. It happens to me. That's funny in a way, you know. But if it gets your mind off of sadness, anger, frustration, because that's going to be the first innate reaction you're going to get. You know what I always learned? Put it on the table, come back to it tomorrow, right? Don't even deal with it. Let it sink in because your first reaction may not be your best reaction. Hello, I'm from Japan. Thanks. Love to have you here. Great to see you. Petra, thanks to you all. A lot of gratitude coming in at the end. I'm getting my podcast. Good for you. Let us all know. Thanks, Dennis.
Pick Thursdays.
Yeah, Thursdays. Well, eventually people aren't going to have a choice because they're all going to have spots. It's really going to be who do you want to compete with, but no one's competing with anybody because, to me, it's like having 10 restaurants on a strip, right? Everybody's going to get its clientele based on how good it is and the value. And a show by itself doesn't guarantee success, but a generous host will. Because people, every restaurant, if you've ever had a favorite one, is somebody the owner of, somebody that knows you. When you come in, they greet you, they're happy to see you. And that's more than the food. How many times you've gone to dinner with people, you even forgot what you ate? You were so interested in the conversation and what everybody was doing that food was secondary. Laughing about it now, maybe we'll be already into tomorrow's show.
It's only 10 and a half hours.
Marathon, 24-hour LinkedIn Live. I always look forward to the show. Thank you, both of you. Thank you, Elizabeth. So with that said, we're 20 minutes over, but that's okay.
Oh, God.
And thank you so much, Leslie. I think we already had our final words. So it's time to hope everybody gets a great return on their investment today. We'll be back tomorrow with Sarah Dawkins. So don't miss that. She's always so wonderful in her generous spirit. So take care. Talk to you later. Bye for now. Hey, Leslie, didn't mean to do that. I turned something off. I turned the show off
Instead,
and I didn't turn, instead of turning the broadcast off.
that was good. And I apologize. I shouldn't have said, it's time for you to invest $20,000 in coaching. And by the way, I'm your girl. I didn't say that. No, I don't. I'm just kidding, really. Actually, Elizabeth, between you and I, won